Okay guys, just done the primer on the little plate I made up. Okay, so this is just the plate I'm making, first coat. So you can see the all different holes in there. The paint job's not great yet, it's just the first coat and it's just dry, so I'm going to give it a little light sanding, and then I'll give it another coat of black and see how that looks. Okay. So a bit of an update on the panel here. Final coat has gone on and that's the cutout, so it's not looking too bad. Obviously it's not perfect painting conditions, it's things fly into it when it's drying, so here's what it is. Alrighty, so here are my auxiliary lights I'm putting on. So I've just bolted these with the little mount it comes with into the triple clamp up the top here. So I've just put one bolt under there. I had to drill it out on the side of the bracket a little bit and then just file it, but it really went on quite nicely. Didn't have to make any modifications to the bike, and yeah, so same thing on this side, just drilled it out and did up the triple clamp again, just moved the handlebar handguards out of the way while I did it, and that was pretty easy. So here I'm just running a cable from the positive on the battery. We'll use the frame as a negative somewhere up near the headlight, so just running a cable along under where all the other cables go, using some of the existing cable ties. In under the seat here, I'm going to solder in a fuse, so that'll just sit nicely down in here, and then the connection will be back here, and then I've got some heat shrink to go over that to keep it all nice and waterproof. So same on the other side, we just come out of the other side of the fuse, and there's a cable loom that goes under here and under the tank, and then it goes through the frame to the left side of the bike, and then I just follow it. This comes out just in there, you won't be able to see it very well, but it comes along here, and then up into the headlight area, and then I've just got my relay here. So this is just the 4-pin relay. So the coil's two tabs, and then the switch normally open switch is the other. So the coil I'm powering here, I found the ignition plug here. So the other side goes to the ignition. I've taken it off, but this goes to the key ignition from this side. And then over here I've just gone into the yellow. So if you look at the wiring diagram for this bike, you'll see that it switches most of these on, but the main one here is the orange on the 2008. So that's the one I want to connect to. So I've just wired a little red cable in there to the active on the coil, and then I'm just going to earth this neutral probably somewhere behind this headlight. Okay. So basically this is one side of the fuse here, just twisting them over. So just leaving the strands as is and just twisting them in line, so just sort of overlapping them around each other, and you can see you can get them fairly well twisted, and then I'm just going to sink a fair bit of solder into that, and then I've got 2 lots of heat shrink to go over it. So one will go right over the connection, so this little piece here will go over the connection, and then I'll do a second layer over a bit longer, so it'll cover a fair bit more each side of the connection as well. Okay. So that's just a soldered side of one of the fuses. So now I'm just going to heat shrink this little bit straight over the connection, and then I've got a larger bit to go over the top of that, so that'll go from like there to there. Okay, so it's sort of double insulated if you like. But yeah, you can get it pretty neat. Like, that's not not the best in the world, but it's pretty neat. Okay. Okay, so here it is, guys. Just from, I'll connect that to the battery. I just ran the cable up along here. We've just soldered our fuse in series, so fuse just sits under the seat. Here we can get to it nice and easy by just taking the seat off. Then it comes under here and around and follows the cabling and up under the tank, and then just goes through the frame onto the other side and comes out just there. Follows the rest of the cables up and into the headlight area. Okay, so these are little switches. They have a smaller tab on the back here. So I think normal is like 6.3 mil. These are like, you know, 4 mil, 4.3 mil, something like that. So I didn't have any fully insulated lugs. So as you can see here, these are the smaller type and they're not insulated at the tip. So instead of going out and buying some, I'm just going to chuck some little bit of heat shrink over the top. And this is the glued heat shrink. I'll just show you how I do that. So you just cut a small little bit and then get the right size if you can, something that's pretty snug to begin with, and then just slide it over the top like that and just get the length right, and then I'll just heat shrink that on, and then that, you know, pretty much creates a you know, insulated little lug there. Okay, a bit of an update, guys. So I've now got my switches here. So this is my low beam switch for headlights, and then this is my fan switch for the radiator. So I've just redirected those. So earlier in the video you saw they were mounted over this way in the shroud. Now I've moved them, so they're going to sit on this plate, but the plate's not ready yet, so I've just got the, you know, the switches and cables there ready to go. Over here now we have the 3.1 amp USB. So that's just handlebar mount. That comes with the cable and fuse and everything, and it's a fair bit of cable, so I've just, you know, tucked it up. A lot of length of cable. I'll just cut that. That'll be powered off of the relay for the ignition. So you can see the 4 pins there. So the one that's left that will be the one that powers everything off the ignition. So voltmeter, auxiliary lights, heated grips, everything basically. So here's the auxiliary lights mounted with the cables coming through. I haven't connected that yet, and same thing with this side, I haven't connected that one yet. Right, so I've taken the grip off. The left side is super easy. Just get a screwdriver and pop it in, lift it up, spray a bit of silicone under there, or you know, CRC or WD-40, wiggle it around the bar like that, and then you'll feel it just come off straight away really easily. The right hand side is a totally different story. The throttle side, we've got the grips off. The left side's really easy. The right side's a little bit tricky. The right side you basically need to cut off and peel off. It's glued to like the throttle body. So that one's a little tricky, and then once you've done that, you need to cut it down with like a razor, like a razor blade, and then you need to basically file. There's little ribs. You can just see the little bits of them. I'm not sure if you can pick that up on the camera, but there's little ribs there that you need to make smooth. So you just get a fairly aggressive file, and it comes off quite easy. Then there's a little raised ring around the outside of this, and then on the inside as well. So I had to file those down. I ended up cutting them with side cutters to get rid of most of the material, and then just filing the rest smooth. So now we're basically ready for the new grips to go on. Obviously you can't use the old one because you had to cut it off. I've just went and bought these from a bike shop. One modification I had to do is cut the end off. So let me just grab the other one. So you'll see that they come, these are just at O'Neill, just $10. These are actually ATV grips. So reason why I did that is the right side, your throttle side, is always a lot thinner because of this throttle body, but I'm putting heated grips on, and I don't want to be replacing my grips every 6 months because I don't want to wreck the element underneath, and I'm going to put glue on there. So I really went for a bit thicker grip just for longevity. So what I had to do there as well is cut out the end, because this is the throttle body side, and I have the Ace hand guards, and if you clamp the rubber onto that, your throttle actually sticks. It won't move freely and go back to that position, the off position, the throttle. So a little modification is cut the end out so it sits nice and flush, and then your handguard can sit up against it. I'll do the same to this side on the left. It's not going to get stuck, but I just want the bar end to sit nicely onto it. So yeah, a little bit of tinkering, bit of filing around there, but after that it's not too bad. And then I'll just stick the element on. I've tested the element. It's always a good idea to test the element first before you go and stick it on and put everything in permanently. So just connect it up to your battery, make sure it gets warm. That'll just be the equivalent of on high. And then I'll do some tape around here. I'll show you guys in a minute. I'll do some tape around here and a zip tie just to hold the cables in place, so if the cables get pulled on, it doesn't pull on the soldered joint onto the element. Anyway, I'll show you in a sec, guys. Okay guys, so here is the active feed that supplies, that goes to the relay. So just a nice crimp under there. Check your crimps, always do a quick pull test on them to make sure the lug doesn't come loose. That's it here coming out and then into the switch side of the relay. So that'll sit on one side of the switch of the relay as the main supply from the battery. And then I also have a so now we're talking about the coil now for the relay. It needs an active and a neutral. So I found my ignition switch here. So here's my ignition over here, and that runs to this connector. And I did some testing and found that the orange cable is the main ignition cable that switches with the ignition. So when I turn the ignition to on, that orange cable has power and does a lot of other things as well. So I tapped into that and just solder connection. This a nice little neat solder connection of the red cable. So this red cable comes out and powers the positive coil side of this relay. And then the neutral, I've just run that to a bolt under here. So that yellow lug down there is just a neutral bolt for the triple clamp. So it's just a mounting bolt, but it's provides a good negative. So I've put all my negatives under two lugs there. They're nice and tight, they're not coming off. So that's the coil sorted for the relay, and that's one of our switched wires, the power from the battery, the yellow one on where my finger is. And then the other side is where you want power coming out of the coil once the ignition's on. So everything you want to have power needs to come from this other terminal here. So I have run, gets a little confusing for some now because the USB comes with a loom. So over here you'll see that it comes with cabling already. So there's an active and neutral in there. So one of these cables here is an active from the USB. Also the heater grips comes with an active. So that is one of these here as well. And then the third active coming out of that terminal is the supply to everything. So I've run one active out to all of my switches over to here. So I've run to this is my auxiliary light. So it needs a feed from the ignition, and then this switch will turn on and off my auxiliary lights when the ignition's on. And then I'll loop from the back of that. So there's two coming into this switch because one's in and one's out. One's to the voltmeter, and then one's into the voltmeter and one's out of the voltmeter to the merit switch because they didn't come with any wiring loom. So that's all the actives sorted. So you've got your heater grips, which is straight to the terminal at the back here on the relay. You've got your USB, which is straight to the terminal at the back here, and then one power cable that's going to supply everything else. So this comes out and goes to the auxiliary light switch, and then loops to the voltage meter, and then loops to the merit switch. That's basically it. So with the heater grips, I just did a zip tie on the edge here, just to make sure that there's never any pressure on the contacts on the element beneath. I also used grip glue, so you just let that dry for about 8 hours. And I'm also going to put a little bit of tape around, a bit of black tape around these cables, just so when you're using the throttle, so it doesn't rub on your throttle housing here. So just over time, you know, you're riding lots of hours, it might just rub through, but I'll just put some insulation tape there, and that'll rub on the tape rather than anything else. But that's basically it. So this was existing already. This is my low beam switch, so that's literally got nothing to do with the new wiring we've done. That's just tapped into the low beam headlight as is. This is our new auxiliary light switch, which has power from the relay. And then the other side of the switch obviously is the active of both of the auxiliary lights. And then this is our fan switch, which was existing as well. I got some meters here, so they're going to mount just like that, and that's basically it. So any questions, leave them below. Alrighty, so bike's on, voltmeter, so obviously bike's running, so I've had the heater grips on. They're really nice and toasty. They get pretty warm pretty quick. And also so this is the fan switch, so you can see down there the fan. You might not pick it up in the video, but that's on from this switch up here. This is the auxiliary lights, so turning the auxiliary lights on. They look really good at night. And then that's the high low beam light, so that's the headlight. And yeah, that's basically it. So I got the USBs as well, so they got power. And the merit switch there, that's got power as well. So there's my temperature and my RPM. The RPM's all over the place at the moment, but bit of interference, a little bit of a rev, just checks it in nicely. Okay, so just tucked the loom away, just neatened everything up. I made sure that there was no bare cables going between the loom and the cockpit here, because there are some metal plates in there and you don't want any cables rubbing, you know, especially when you go off the track and it gets really rough and things will just rub a lot. So I chucked them in loom tube and just zip tied so the loom tube won't go anywhere. Also, this is the, you know, a little bit of weather protector for the cabling, the original one, but because there's extra wires there and plugs, it won't fit. So all I did was just went to Bunnings and got some Velcro, and I just basically super glued it. I used Loctite glue and just glued it to the little bit of mesh, and then made it super long, so it just wraps all the way around through the back of the cables, and then that just velcros down and holds it all in place. And you can get some Velcro for like you know, 5 meters for like $15 at Bunnings, and just get the non-stick stuff, so it's just Velcro on either side and just sticks to itself. But yeah, that's all I did for that bit. Okay guys, quick update. Here is the pretty much finished product. So as you can see, I've got my hour meter on the right here. This switch controls my radiator fan. This switch controls my auxiliary lights. This switch controls my low beam. This is my coolant temperature, my ignition, and my heater grips. Here's a little merit switch down here. So that's all got power when the ignition's on off the relay. Same with the USB switch, it's got power off the ignition. And same with my auxiliary lights. Obviously low beam and fan switch as well. And heater grip. So yeah, that's basically it. So any questions, leave them below.